Welcome to Educon. This is Imam with you. In this session, we will start learning about diversity in the living world. In this unit, this is the first unit from class 11 NCERT biology. In this unit, we have 4 chapters. Chapter 1, that is the living world. Chapter 2, biological classification. Chapter 3, plant kingdom, and chapter 4, animal kingdom. So before going for the chapter 1, we have a small introduction about what is biology, what is the diversity, and we'll discuss about the scientist who is mainly involved in this chapter. So coming to the class, biology is the science of life forms and living process. Okay, life forms means different living organisms. Okay, forms means like we are one form of living, like plants are there, it is also one form of living, like microorganisms, they are also forms of living. So biology is the science of life forms and living processes. The living world comprises an amazing diversity of living organisms. When you see around you, we already discussed while in the chapter 3, in the unit number 3, in the cell unit of life. The living world comprises amazing diversity. What is the diversity? Means different living organisms, they live together on this planet, like humans, plants, animals, microorganisms, lot of things. So the living world comprises an amazing diversity of living organisms. Early man could easily perceive the difference between the inanimate matter and living organism. So before, a man can easily differentiate what is the living and what is non-living. Okay, and also early man divided some of the inanimate matter and some among the animals and plants. Okay, early man defined some of the inanimate matter like wind, sea, fire, because they don't have any kind of life, and some among the animals and plants. A common feature of all such forms of inanimate and animate objects was the sense of awe or fear that they evoke. The difference between the animate and inanimate, like inanimate things, you can take chair, stone, okay, a lot of things. Okay, animate means which sense the things like fear, okay, when they evoke. The description of living organisms, including human beings, began much later in human history. What does it mean? The description means the description of living organisms, how you define the different living organisms, including human beings, began much later in human history. Later means later, not early history, early in the history, later in the human history. Societies which indulge in anthropocentric view of biology could register limited progress in biological knowledge. Because earlier society, they are mainly indulging anthropocentric view of biology. Okay, so they have a limited progress. At the time, they got a limited progress in biological knowledge, and systematic and monumental description of life forms brought in out of necessity detailed systems of identification, nomenclature, and classification. A detailed system of identification, nomenclature, and classification. The biggest spill of such studies was the recognition of the sharing similarities among living organisms, both horizontally and vertically. That all present day living organisms are related to each other and also to all organisms that ever lived on this earth was a revelation which humbled man and led to cultural movements for conservation of biodiversity. Okay, this knowledge brought humans to understand the diversity in the natural world. In the following chapters of this unit, you will get a description including classification of animals and plants from a taxonomist perspective. So how the taxonomists see the things. So we'll discuss in the coming chapters. Okay. Ernest Mayr is the scientist. He is considered as the Darwin of the 20th century. This is the important point. Okay, here there is no much scope for a to see any kind of questions from this paragraph, but this is most important. His name is Ernest Mayr, okay, and he's a evolutionary biologist who has been called the Darwin of the 20th century, and he's one of the 100 greatest scientists of all time. Okay? And his research is mentioned here, which is not so much important to learn and remember. Okay. So in this chapter there are 4 sections. First is what is living, then diversity in the living world, taxonomic categories, and the last is taxonomical aids. Okay. Now we'll discuss all these 4 sections one by one in detail. How wonderful is the living world? Exactly. When you see around, you see amazing beauty, like in nature. You see a lot of animals, a lot of plants. Okay. So it is very amazing to see all such things surrounding us. So how wonderful is the living world? The wide range of living types like organisms. Okay. Living types is amazing. Yes. The extraordinary habitats in which we find living organisms. What are those extraordinary habitats here? Like oceans, cold mountains, deciduous forests, freshwater lakes, deserts, and hot springs. Hot springs, we have some certain bacteria which survive in hot springs at extreme temperatures. In same like in cold mountains too. At freezing temperature, there are so many animals and organisms which survive in such habitats, leaving us speechless. Yes, it may wonder us, because sometimes for a normal human being, okay, he cannot tolerate certain amount of temperature. But if you go to extreme cold condition, we can't survive there. So, but you see the living systems present in there. The beauty of galloping horse, of the migrating birds, the valley of flowers, or the attacking shout evokes awe and a deep sense of wonder. These all things, like it brings what is this life. So it gives you wonder how exactly the world is made up of. The ecological conflict and cooperation among members of population and among the populations of a community, or even the molecular traffic inside a cell, make us deeply reflect on what indeed is life. Okay, ecological conflict means different types of animals. We are in touch. Like if you go to forest, you find wild animals like cat, like this tiger, lion, bear, all this, and still we are on the same earth. So the ecological conflict and the cooperation among the members of population, okay, and among the populations of the community. Like members of the populations means, like we have cooperation with certain animals like cow, goat, all these dogs. We have a certain cooperation with those animals. And populations of a community, like we humans, we have our understanding, like we have a community, or even the molecular traffic inside a cell make us deeply reflect on what indeed is life. The molecular traffic means the reactions which occurs in our cell. This question has 2 implicit questions within it. The first is the technical one, and 6 answer to what living is as opposed to the non-living, and the second is a philosophical one, and 6 answer to what the purpose of life. Purpose of life is philosophical one. Okay, as a scientist, what we need to do, we need to find out what is living. So we'll try to reflect on what is living. Okay, coming to, so in this chapter, the first section is what is living. When we try to define living, we conventionally look for distinctive characteristics exhibited by living organisms. Okay, when you try to define, we look for the certain characteristics exhibited by living organisms, such as we can take growth, reproduction, ability to sense environment, and mount a suitable response come to our mind immediately as unique features of living organism. So these are the features which comes to our mind when we talk about living organism. Examples are like growth, reproduction, sensing the environment, and also giving suitable response to the environment. One can add a few more features like Apart from growth, reproduction, and the sensing to the environment, certain other features can be added like metabolism, ability to self-replicate, that is the reproduction, self-organize, interact, and emergence to this list. Okay, these are all the features you can add as unique features of living organisms. Let us try to understand each of these. So we have certain features. We'll talk about one by one. The first one is growth. All living organisms grow. Okay, all living organisms, they grow. Increase in mass and increase in number of individuals are twin characteristics of growth. Increasing in mass means cell duplication resulting in tissue formation, then organ, then whole body itself. So here, increase in mass and increase in number of individuals are twin characteristics of growth. A multicellular organism grow by cell division. Multicellular organisms means plants, animals. There are other certain microorganisms which are also multicellular. So in plants, this growth by cell division occurs continuously throughout their lifespan. So there is no any time frame for the growth in plants. Whereas in animals, this growth is seen only up to certain age. However, cell division occurs in certain tissues to replace lost tissue. In humans, for example, you take, there is an average lifespan for the humans around 60, 70, like different countries they have the lifespan is different from geographically it is different. So however, cell division occurs in certain tissues to replace the lost cells. What is that mean? Even we stop growing, but certain cells in our body needs to be replaced in particular amount of time, like heart blood cells, examples you can take. Unicellular organisms grow by cell division. Okay, one can easily observe this in vitro cultures by simply counting the number of cells under the microscope. We know that amoeba they divide by binary fission, so we can do all this. This growth can be established in vitro, like in the lab, in cultures, by counting the number of cells under the microscope. In majority of higher animals and plants, growth and reproduction are mutually exclusive events. What is this exclusive? There is another inclusive also. Let's know what is this. In unicellular organisms, growth and reproduction are inclusive events because they grow when they reproduce. Okay, for example, amoeba, it divides by binary fission. One amoeba cell gives rise to two daughter cells. Here the growth is represented by division. Okay, so new cells are also forming here. Whereas in higher plants and animals, growth refers to cell enlargement, cell differentiation, leading to formation of different tissues, then organs, and the whole organisms itself. Okay, in higher plants and animals, growth refers to cell enlargement, cell differentiations, leading to the formation of different tissues, then organs, and the whole body itself. Okay, animals can grow up to certain age. Remember this, animals can grow up to certain age, but plants can go on forever. Okay, that is a difference between the animals and plants. And also some animals can have a normal body growth, but they are sterile, means they cannot reproduce. That is why growth and reproduction in higher plants and animals are mutually exclusive events. They are not connected. So whereas in inclusive events, what is there? It means because they grow when they reproduce. That is how here we need to grow to for a particular amount of time, then only we can reproduce. That is the difference between the mutually inclusive or mutually exclusive events. Okay, one must remember that increase in body mass is considered as growth. Okay, yes, because cell doubling taking place. Non-living objects also grow if you take increasing body mass as a criteria for growth. For example, if you take increase in weight or mass as a criteria of growth, there are some non-living objects. Certain like examples are mountains, boulders, sand, molds to grow. They also grow, but this kind of growth exhibited by non-living object is by accumulation of material on the surface. Okay, they are also growing, but their growth is not inclusive, that is from external side. So because of accumulation of material on the surface. In living organism, growth is from inside. The growth therefore cannot be taken as defining property of living organism. Okay, so it is growth cannot be taken as defining property, means there are a lot of other objects which grow, so this is not a right examples to define the property of living organism. Conditions under which it can be observed in all living organisms have to be explained, and then we understand that it is the characteristic of living systems. A dead organism does not grow again. Okay, so here the growth cannot be taken as defining property of living organism, and also conditions like when we observe in all living organism had to be explained, and then we understand that it is the characteristic of living system, and also a dead organism does not grow. Okay. Reproduction is the next one. Reproduction likewise is a characteristic of living organism. Okay. In multicellular organism, reproduction refers to the production of progeny possessing features more or less similar to those of parents. Okay, multicellular means you can take plants and animals, all this. So here our progeny, they are more or less similar to those of parents. Invariably and implicitly, we refer to sexual reproduction. When I said that the progeny features are more or less similar to those of parents, we are directly referring to the sexual reproduction in multicellular organisms. Organisms reproduce by asexual means also, means without sexual there is other mode of reproduction which is called asexual mode. So fungi multiply and spread easily due to millions of sexual spores they produce. Okay, fungi, they multiply by asexual means. Okay, fungi can multiply and spread easily due to the millions of asexual spores as they produce. In lower organisms like yeast and hydra, we observe budding. Okay, in planaria, flatworms, we observe true regeneration. That is, a fragmented organism regenerated the lost part of its body and becomes a new organism. Okay, this is in planaria, that is flatworm, where if you cut one part, okay, then slowly that part will grow and become a full-size new organism. The fungi, the filamentous algae, the protonema of Moses, all easily multiply by fragmentation. So here what we need to remember is which of the following organisms multiply by fragmentation. So here we have certain examples. You can take fungi, filamentous algae, the protonema of Moses. So these all three are the examples for which multiply through fragmentation. When it comes to unicellular organisms like bacteria, unicellular algae or amoeba, reproduction is synonymous with growth. Okay, this is important. Okay, in which of the following organism you find the reproduction, you can observe the reproduction which is synonymous with growth. Question will be like this. Okay, so here in unicellular organisms, bacteria, unicellular algae or amoeba, reproduction is synonymous with growth. Before I told you that inclusive events. Okay, the bacteria, the amoeba, when it divides through binary fission, it forms two daughter nuclei. This is represented as growth. So here the growth is reproduction is synonymous with growth. That is, increasing number of cells, means when the increasing number of cells, it is termed as growth in unicellular organisms. we have already defined growth as equivalent to increase in cell number or mass. Hence, we notice that in single cell organisms, we are not very clear about the usage of these two terms like growth and also reproduction. So here we notice that in single cellular organism, we are unable to define, okay, we are unable to define these two terms like growth and reproduction. Further, there are many organisms which do not reproduce. Okay, again, see what is the heading here, like reproduction is a characteristic of living organism, but there are some organisms which do not reproduce like mules, sterile worker bees, infertile human couples, etc. Hence, reproduction also cannot be an all-inclusive defining characteristic of living organisms. Okay. So we'll revise here. So organism, they reproduce sexual, through asexual, and also through fragmentation. And some unicellular organisms like bacteria or unicellular algae or amoeba, reproduction is synonymous with growth, where increasing number of cells occurs. And also we already have defined the growth as equivalent to increasing cell number or mass. Okay. Hence, we notice that in single cell organisms, we are not very clear about the usage of these two terms, because growth and reproduction, it is occurring concurrently here. And also certain organisms, they do not reproduce, okay, like mules, sterile worker bees, infertile human couples. Hence reproduction also cannot be an all-inclusive defining characteristic of living organism. Hence, reproduction also cannot be an all-inclusive defining characteristic of living organism. Of course, no non-living object is capable of reproducing or replicating by itself, because we saw the growth is also not a defining character, because like mountains, they all grow but through externally. Same like here also what we observe, but non-living objects they are not capable of reproducing or replicating by themselves. Coming to another characteristic of life is metabolism. This is also one of the characteristic of living organisms. All living organisms are made of chemicals. These chemicals, small, big, belonging to various classes, sizes, functions, etc., are constantly being made and changed into some other biomolecules. Okay? These conversions are chemical reactions or metabolic reactions. So here, one more characteristic we need to learn about. So metabolism. So every organism, all organisms, they are composed of cells. So in cell, there is lot of chemical reactions going on. Some reactions, they break down the glucose. Some reactions, they break down the fatty acid, convert into glucose. So lot of other functions, okay, being carrying out in our cells. So these conversions are chemical reactions or metabolic reaction. Metabolic reactions means which when you take food, it generates energy in our body. So metabolic reaction again can be classified into catabolic and anabolic reaction. There are thousands of metabolic reactions occurs simultaneously inside all living organisms. So they are not one or two or three reactions. There are thousands of metabolic reactions which are occurring inside all living organisms. So lot of chemical reactions are occurring on daily basis in all living organisms, be they unicellular or multicellular. All plants, animals, fungi, and microbes exhibit metabolism, irrespective of any organism. Metabolism occurs in all multicellular and unicellular organisms. The sum of all the chemical reactions occurring in our body is metabolism. So you can take a small definition about metabolism here. The sum total of all chemical reactions occurring in our body is metabolism. No non-living objects exhibits metabolism. Metabolism means certain molecules are being formed, certain breaking down into forming new molecules. Okay, biomolecules. Metabolic reactions can be demonstrated outside the body in cell-free system. Metabolic reactions means like certain reactions we can demonstrate in lab, okay, in cell-free system. An isolated metabolic reaction outside the body of organism performed in a test tube is neither living or non-living. Remember this, neither living or non-living. Okay, same reaction when you carry it out in a test tube in a lab, then they are not called as living or non-living. Hence, while metabolism is defining feature of all living organisms without exception, okay, metabolism, however, is the defining feature of all living organisms without exception. Isolated metabolic reaction in vitro are not living things but surely living reaction. Okay, hence cellular organization of the body is the defining feature of life forms. Okay, this is the defining feature. Okay, perhaps the most obvious and technically complicated feature of all living organisms is the ability to sense their surrounding or environment and respond to these environmental stimuli, which could be physical, chemical, or biological. Here, what does this mean? All living organisms, they have a sense of ability to sense their surrounding or environment and respond to suitable stimuli, which may be the stimulus may be physical, chemical, or biological. We sense our environment through our sense organs. Yes. Okay. For example, we take example as for humans, we see through our eyes, and we listen with the help of our ears, and we smell through our nose. So these are the sensory organs which sense the surroundings. Plants respond to external factors like light, water, temperature, other elements, and also pollutants. Okay, they will give a response to all these factors, such as which are the organisms? Plants. Okay, they will respond to external factors like light, water, temperature, other organisms, and also pollutants. All organisms from the prokaryotes to the most complex eukaryotes can sense and respond to environmental cues. Okay, means environmental conditions. Photoperiod affects reproduction in seasonal breeds. Photoperiod is a amount of light received during the day, so it is seasonal. So we can take it as a seasonal. In some season we'll be having a daylight, the daylight time will be more comparing to the night time. So photoperiod affects reproduction in seasonal breeders, both plants and animals. Okay, all organisms handle chemicals entering their body, and also all organisms therefore are aware of their surroundings. Especially human being is the only organism who is aware of himself. Okay, one of the most important part has self-consciousness. Okay, we know what we are. This is what the difference between the humans and other organisms. Hence, consciousness therefore becomes the defining property of living organism. Okay, consciousness therefore becomes the defining property of living organism. When it comes to human being, it is all the more difficult to define the living state. Yes, sometimes, because we observe patient lying in coma in hospital, virtually supported by machines which replace their heart and lungs. The patient is otherwise brain dead, as he is having no self-consciousness. How could we define or such patients who never come back to life, living or living? Then we'll study in the higher classes about this. Okay, informations. In higher classes, you will come to know that all living phenomena are due to underlying interactions. Properties of tissues are not present in the constituent cells but arise as a result of interaction among the constituent cells. Understand this? Properties of tissues. Okay, some specific, you can take any kind of tissue. Example, the property of the tissue are not present in the constituent cells. It is not present in the cell but arise as a result of interactions among the constituent cells. Okay, different cells, they interact together. Okay, and the result is performed. Similarly, properties of cellular organelles. Similarly, properties of cellular organelles are not present in the molecular constituents of the organelle but arise as a result of interaction among the molecular components comprising the organelles. Okay, properties of cellular organelles, okay, are not present in the molecular constituents of the organelle, but arise as a result of interaction among the molecular components. Okay, remember this. But arise as a result of interactions among the molecular components comprising the organelle. These interactions result in emergent properties at higher level of organization. This phenomena is true in the hierarchy of organizational complexity at all levels. Therefore, we can say that living organisms are self-replicating. Living organisms are, we can say that living organisms are self-replicating, evolving and self-regulating interactive systems capable of responding to external stimuli. Okay, and here biology is a story of life on earth, as we know all this. Biology is a story of evolution of living organisms on earth. All living organisms, present, past and future, are linked to one another by sharing of the common genetic material, but to certain degrees, varying degrees. Okay, so here we'll biology is a story of life on earth, and also story of evolution of living organisms on earth, and all organisms present, past and future are linked to one another by sharing of common genetic material, but to varying degrees, means certain degrees, not completely they are similar, to certain degrees they are similar. And after listening to this video, please kindly go through your NCERT book and read it once. The more you read, the more you remember, because revision is the most important for NEET aspirants. Okay, and please subscribe to my channel. Thank you.